I guess we've officially begun by Coney Island USA and the Coney Island Museum. Coney Island USA is Coney Island and South Brooklyn's resident not-for-profit arts organization. And we are the ones that bring you the Mermaid Parade every year, except for last one where we had a telethon. But you can see us at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade this coming, well, it would be a week from tomorrow. So check that out on TV. We bring you the Coney Island Circus Sideshow, a myriad of other programming, including the Coney Island Museum. So check us out at coneyisland.com. On our Zoom right now is Lisa Mangel-Schaefer, the director of the Coney Island Museum. Lisa, how are you? You're on mute.
Unmute yourself, Lisa.
Lisa, I just want to wave. All right. Just wave. All right, so that there is Lisa. And now I get to introduce our guests for the evening. Now this, as I said, it's the inaugural Ask the Experts online, and this is a powerhouse event right here. I mean, there is probably no better way to kick things off than with these two guys. Now, first, I want to introduce to you a true, when you talk about a supporter of the variety arts, a supporter of vaudeville, of modern contemporary vaudeville. If there's a show, you will see this guy out there photographing that show. He's like out when the world is normal, every night, basically, shooting, and is a true historian of vaudeville, of variety. Not only that, he was a performer, but he may or may not want to talk about that tonight. Additionally, he's not going to do, all right. Additionally, he was seen in the Philippe Petit documentary, Man on a Wire, because he was the photographer that shot Philippe crossing the Twin Towers on a tightrope. You can check out his work at vaudevisuals.com, where he has a blog about vaudeville and variety arts. And what we're talking about tonight is the first book of Vaudevisuals Press. And we're excited to have Jim Moore with us this evening. Hello, Jim.
Hi everyone. How you doing? Welcome to Coney Island USA's Ask the Expert. It's a privilege to be here, and thank you, Adam, for inviting me.
Right on. Next, our second guest over here, another giant in the world of vaudeville, in the world of variety. He literally wrote the book about vaudeville, and that would be right over here. No applause, just throw money. And I mean, this is like literally the book about vaudeville. We're not here to promote this one tonight, but we can certainly talk about it. As a matter of fact, in the book, I still have the clipping from the New York Times article. That's right, because I'm one of those guys who just saves clippings and whatnot. And it's not autographed, but it should be, and we'll have to take care of that post-COVID. But continuing on, wrote the book about vaudeville, about variety arts, is an author, is a director, is a playwright. Now, the book that he just wrote, that's coming out on in Jim's Vaudevisuals Press, is called Rose's Royal Midgets. And here tonight is the author of Rose's Royal Midgets and the curator of Travelanche, which is a vaudeville and variety blog at travsd.wordpress.com. So let's welcome Trav S.D.
How do? And I'd like to mention that Travelanche has photographs of Adam Realman live in action at our local Great Neck Festival, which we hope will start up again in 2021.
That was a fun afternoon.
It certainly was. So is the ball in our court?
So I pass the ball to you, and
okay.
You can spin it on your finger, or Do it.
I'm wise to how that plate spinning gets done, Adam. All right. Well, I thought what we could do is start the genesis of this project is really with Mr. Jim Moore. So I'm going to kick it to you, Jim, with the question: what's the origin of this book?
So the origin of this book is kind of percolating for quite a few years. I photograph eccentric variety arts, I like to call it, and that's why I'm at Coney Island, USA all the time. And one of the things that came about as a result of this COVID epidemic, pandemic, was that I wasn't able to photograph anybody anymore. I started getting very restless, and I looked up some eccentric performing arts, and some of the ones that I came across were from the early 1920s. One of the companies was very unique and esoteric and eccentric, was Rose's Royal Midgets, which is 25 midgets that were brought over from Europe to America to perform all over this country. And I found this little booklet, this little brochure. It was a souvenir program, and it had, I guess, 18 pages or so, and there were little profiles, biographies of each of the performers in the company. I found it extremely fascinating, and I said, who are these people, and what is their story? And that's what's the origin of the book. I just started researching it, and then I spoke to my friend Travis, who happened to have written quite a bit about little people in his blog. So it seemed like a natural fit to get him to get involved. And then I also spoke to James Taylor, the author and proprietor of Shocked and Amazed, to ask him to write the foreword for the book, which is very entertaining. And then we put it all together. And a wonderful graphic artist, performer, Noah Diamond, who did a beautiful job. He's doing a beautiful job on the book. So we're very excited about it. Very excited about it.
It's a book I would like to own.
Yeah.
I resist being called the author of this book. It's really a collaboration between the four of us, I think. James wrote that terrific essay, and Noah's charming pictures, and then 5 if you include the primary materials from your collections. So one question I had for you was, were you already a collector? Like, did you already have that program? Or did you just start like collecting during the Rona?
I had some souvenir postcards because I collect postcards. I had some souvenir postcards of little people from the variety vaudeville days, but I didn't have that little booklet, which came up in an auction of vaudeville memorabilia. So I didn't think I was going to do the book when I bought the booklet. I just got the booklet and I started looking at it, and that's when I got really fascinated with the company. And then I started buying postcards of the company, and we started moving on from there. I mean, I'll tell you about the later part of the book, which is really fascinating. And when I meet somebody that I know that has a relative within the company.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Somebody who I'm sure a lot of people watch, or maybe some people watching this, may know the clown Karen McCarty, who used to, I don't know if she still is, she was with the clown care unit at Big Apple Circus. That's how I first met her. But so how did you find out that her grandmother was in the troupe, right?
Yes. So Karen and I have known each other for over 30 years, and we actually performed together on the road for IBM computers back in the day. And 30 years ago when we were on the road, and she happened to mention to me, my grandmother was in vaudeville. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. That's very interesting. But we didn't take it any further than that conversation until recently, when I mentioned to her, after having worked on the project for 6 months, I mentioned to her that I was working on this book on Rose's Royal Midgets. And she said, my grandmother was in that company. My grandmother was 3'11". I fit into her clothes when I was 5 years old. And I said, oh my goodness, this is synchronicity. I have to do an interview with you. And if possible, your mother, who is the daughter of Gladys Farkas, who's the person we're talking about here. So I did an interview, which is on the blog, and then I interviewed her mother, and I got a lot of really interesting information, not to mention some beautiful graphic photographs and contracts from Gladys when she was working for Ike Rose, et cetera, et cetera. So the book really came around to become a very personal project.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique object. It's got the essay about the company, and then it's got the program in its entirety, and then it's got the interview about Gladys with her relatives, and then it's got a whole bunch of other little people you've collected cartes de visite, right, and other little items and things. So it's a book I would like to receive for Christmas, but I wrote it, so
you'll have a copy.
We're sounding too much like a commercial now, but but I'm glad you came to me because it's a topic that's always fascinated me. My favorite movie when I was a kid was The Wizard of Oz. Singer's Royal Midgets, or the Singer's Midgets, was probably the premier act of that type back in the day, and they cast the Munchkins largely out of that company. So when I was a kid, I was really fascinated by that. And then there was a Life magazine had a coffee table book about evolution, and there was a section of like, people born with 6 fingers and toes, and pituitary giants, and little people. And there was this one very famous, very powerful photograph of the Ovitz family, who were either German or Austrian, family of pituitary dwarfs, who actually or they might have been Hungarian, but were imprisoned in Auschwitz. So they were known as the 7 dwarfs of Auschwitz. So that famous photo had always intrigued me. And then, later I started blogging about vaudeville, and inevitably there's like overlap, because there are people like Billy Barty, the famous little person, performed in vaudeville. But what's unique about Roses and just a handful of other little companies, similar companies, is that you didn't have a lot of acts of that type in vaudeville. They played sideshows and dime museums and circuses and such like, but it was kind of rare to have the sort of the born different in a vaudeville act. And then to top it off, they're rare, very statistically rare to have little people. So it became this sort of post-Barnum pissing contest or whatever to amass companies. If one little person is rare, if you get like 25 in a whole company, that is really something you would tell your children about having seen. And then, when you read about it, they would do these things like, some of them would assume persona, well, he combed the globe, right? In his travels, he met people from various countries. One guy was from Java, I think. So obviously he's going to be all Javanese in his attire or whatever. But then one lady was the quote unquote midget Mae West, and somebody else is like the quote unquote midget Tom Mix and stuff like that. And then they all had skills. They were skilled. They weren't just there to be gawked at. Some could juggle, and some had acrobatic skills, and they could do impressions and sing and dance and the whole Megillah. Right. And then you've got some other companies in the book, other entire companies, like there's Clinkhart's Midgets.
Yeah, so there's quite a few other companies.
And the Dahl family, Rossau's Midgets, and the Dahl family, who Coney Island fans I know about, because 2 of them are in the movie Freaks, as this sort of boy-girl couple who in real life were actually brother and sister, which is far weirder than anything else that's in Freaks. Frida, Hans and Frida are the characters. I forget what their real names were, but so they're in the book, right? Who else?
Yeah. There's quite a few. Philip and Nicole, who had a midget museum in Canada, and quite an entourage layout there. And I have actually a little brochure of his that was a souvenir brochure of his that he would sell at his museum when people visited it.
So that was a big tourist attraction in Montreal, right? Like a whole midget castle that people would visit, where everything was in miniature. And it was in the tour that if you went to Montreal, people would go to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was part of the tour, and he did very well with that. And he was very good. He was very good at merchandising and marketing himself because he had this little pamphlet, and just like Ike Rose was with his souvenir booklet, which I think was really quite wonderful. And there are a lot of other solo performers, and they're all claiming to be the smallest or the tiniest person in the world.
And I don't think we're revealing too much if we say that sometimes the statistics are exaggerated when they're talking about what people's measurements were in the sideshow world back in the day.
Yeah, there was. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's quite a few examples of other little people from vaudeville in the book, which is part of the reason I wanted to sort of balance it out. I mean, the Roses story is quite wonderful, and it's illustrated with a lot of personal pictures from Gladys and Karen, and contracts and letters and all kinds of wonderful things. And then in the second part of the book is all the other performers, which you've written about extensively in the blog. And then the third part, which is something I discovered while I was doing the research, was that one of the photographers that I admire very much, Charles Eisenman, who used to have a studio on the Bowery, he actually photographed a lot of little people in the late 1800s. So that's a section in the book that has some beautiful antique CSVs or whatever they are, card visits, things in the back of the book. That's the last section of the book, which is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people know the name Charles Eisenman as much as Brady, for example, or who did a lot of photographs of P.T. Barnum, and also there's Tom Thumb is in it, right? And Mrs. Tom Thumb, and so forth. The one of the exciting parts, I don't know if it'll be as exciting to sideshow fans, but it was kind of the rabbit hole that I fell into. Was initially back in the couple years ago, or whatever, when I first did my little blog post about Rose's Royal Midgets, I knew very little and hadn't dug very deeply into it. And it was probably 5 sentences long or something. It was kind of perfunctory. So when I fell into the rabbit hole of primary research, what I don't ordinarily do unless someone's really twisting my arm, it's always rewarding. And so I learned about this guy, Ike Rose, who was really important back in the day and is totally forgotten. So I think one thing that's valuable about the book is that it's not anywhere. Like the info about this guy is not in existing books about showbiz, about vaudeville or burlesque, because he was also in burlesque or sideshow. But he was roughly as important as like Flo Ziegfeld or Tony Pastor, or Martin Beck, for example. And I think one reason people don't know him in the US so well is when he started to make it big in the 1890s, he went to Europe, and mostly because he booked this one act, his wife, Sahara Et, who was this fabulous burlesque performer and cooch dancer. And she got big, and they went over to London and then Paris and Vienna and Berlin, and he was booking the Winter Garden in Berlin, booking famous performers like Houdini and so forth. And so he became one of the important presenters of huge American acts in Europe. And that was kind of his real heyday. And then the transition for him was he toured and booked the Hilton sisters, also in the movie Freaks, the famous conjoined Hilton sisters. And he also booked the Blasik twins, or the Blotchik twins, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. They were this Czech conjoined sisters. So at a certain point, he had 2 sets of conjoined twins he was touring with, which I think is probably a feat unprecedented in his time and never to be repeated. That's a very rare thing. Then the Blachiks got sick and passed away. And Sahara got mad at him for spending too much time with the Hilton sisters. Just like that stuttering man who marries them in the Freaks. So yeah, I don't know how he rolled. I don't know if he went conjoined or what, but so, so so then he, he started to book and sort of collect this act from wherever he went. I think Austria and Berlin and London. These people, I don't really know the facts of it, but it seems to me that there is a higher than usual instances of little people in Germany for some reason. It seems to me a lot of the performers and acts, maybe they just happen to go into show business because of Germany always had a great circus scene. But at any rate, he seems to have hired a lot of his acts there. And he was German. This is something I didn't put in the book, by the way, Jim.
Oh.
But so only our listeners here will know this fact. It didn't seem quite relevant to me. But when he first came back during World War I, because World War I was going on, he actually got arrested and detained for a while because he had been born in Hanover, Germany, I think. He was German, but he was German American. He grew up in the Lower East Side, which is where he got his start, like in those Bowery dime museums and so forth. But yeah, they arrested him because he was German and he had a German birth date on his passport or whatever. Also, interesting fact is that the act outlived Max Rose by like a quarter century. His wife booked it at all the great world's fairs. And then as vaudeville died, it got to be like carnivals and county fairs and things like that. But yeah, so I guess the point I started with is that Ike Rose was a important guy in showbiz during his time, but has been almost completely forgotten. You have to go back to the old trade papers to find anything about him.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures of Ike and the company in the book, which are featured on vintage postcards that I have, and some of the glossy pictures that Karen and Annabelle were privileged to give me from their collection of Gladys. Some really fun pictures, which are very unique, are in the book.
And also his brother, Ike's brother, was also they were among the founders of the Columbia Burlesque Wheel. For a number of years, Ike Rose worked with this guy, Gus Hill, who started out as a club twirler back in the day, early days of like juggling and stuff. He'd juggle those big Indian clubs around and became big in vaudeville and burlesque and kind of gave Ike Rose his leg up and was one of the backers and co-producers of Rose's Royal Midgets as a show, what they used to call a tab show. Yeah, so it's an interesting overlap between sideshow and vaudeville because it was a big production. Usually in vaudeville, you'd be very self-contained and very, an act might last 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes at the max. Big companies that toured the vaudeville circuits were fairly unusual. The Marx Brothers, for example, had a big full company, and you'd put on a full musical show, what they called a tab, short for tabloid show, that in and of itself would be worth the price of admission, really, on a vaudeville bill. So that was the kind of show that Ike Rose put on.
Yeah, so I was happy to hear that the Coney Island USA was able to put together some graphics that I sent them to show. We went at them, yeah. So this is the new logo for the Vaudevisuals Press, which we just started a few months ago to publish this wonderful new book of ours. This is a lovely quote from Coney Island USA founder and director Dick Zegan. After he looked at our book and read it, he gave us a lovely write-up about his feelings regarding the book. This is Gladys Farkas, her name that was given to her when she came to America. She was really a Gisela Farkas was her name in Hungary before she came over to America, but they renamed her Gladys at the immigration because they couldn't pronounce Gisela. She was modeling the costume. Yeah, this is the next one is the table of contents of the book. Just a little preview. The forward by the preface is by me, the forward by James Taylor, and then Roses Midgets by Travis, and then the souvenir program, and then there's the interview with Karen and Annabelle, which is the Gladys Farkas section. And then we go to the illustrated and written by Travis, other little people vaudeville pictures. And then the last section is the Charles Eisenman photos with a write-up about him and his career on the Bowery, photographing a lot of P.T. Barnum's people that they worked at the Ann Street Museum back in the day. This is Gladys on the far right, making fun of her own stature.
But Jim, I hate to interrupt. Did the extractor extract midget juice, or was it a midget juice extractor?
It was a small juice extractor. She thought it was funny to stand in front of that sign, obviously, right? And this is in one of the pictures from the second section. This is Jack and Bill, two little people performers. And this is another section, Mr. and Mrs. Brangant. This is a postcard from a postcard. It comes from the book.
They were the Candy Kids. They were billed as the Candy Kids.
Candy Kids, yeah. They promoted a lot of different kinds of candies on postcards and stuff like that at the time. And this is the cover of the book. Yeah, I'm very proud of working on this project. It's been like a labor of love and a lot of fun working with James and Noah, who designed the book, and Travis. It's been a real blast, and certainly kept my mind off of all the nonsense going on outside in the real world.
What was it like interviewing the daughter and granddaughter?
Yeah, so Karen McCarty, my good friend Karen McCarty, she was really excited about giving some due credit to her grandmother, because she spent a lot of time on Sunday evenings talking to her grandmother about her kind of career and what she did in vaudeville and how she worked the Keith circuit. And she had a traveling suitcase that had all of her costumes and shoes and her gloves and everything in it. And Karen, as a 5-year-old, would ask her about, what's this costume and what's this? And I was actually allowed to photograph her custom-made leather shoes and her custom-made gloves for the book, which was really fun. And and she was really delighted to talk about it, which that interview is actually on the blog on Vaudevisuals. And then Annabelle, her mother, which I didn't think I was going to be able to talk to her, but she was out in Ohio, lives on a little ranch out in Ohio. So she's 84 years old, and she was just absolutely delightful to talk to on the phone. We had such a great conversation. In fact, we kept on calling each other back and forth to straighten out and make sure that numbers and dates and names and everything. She identified a lot of the people that are in the book that were part of the company of Ike Roses, because she knew a lot of her mother's friends. They used to come over and visit all the time. So she got to know this whole community of little people, which she was then able to identify in the pictures for the book, which is just a delightful treat for me, as hopefully for the readers as well.
And Gladys's husband, was he in the company as well? I can't remember. Was he a little person as well?
Well, he was actually drafted into the company as a trombone player. Even though he didn't play trombone, Gladys got him a job in the band because she wanted to be able to travel with him. So she got him into the band to play the short trombone, which he then toured with the company as part of the band. But he wasn't really a performer. He just played the trombone occasionally in the band.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were quite a. I mean,
I'm looking at the chat. There are some questions.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Someone is asking how old were the little people when they were in show business, and really all ages, right?
All ages, yes. Yeah, all ages. Yeah.
There's a benefit to hiring them when they're like children, because they're very small as children, and you could claim that they're adults. Right? You could say that they're 20 years old when they're 10 or 5 or whatever. In general, and usually they would claim that they're like a couple of feet tall when they might be 3 and even getting close to 4 feet tall as they age. So young people very often, but also when they got old. One interesting thing is there's a large number of them when they got old enough to retire, they would retire to the hinterland someplace, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, or like Montreal, like we saw. And they would, in more than one instance, in many instances, they'd have a small house built to scale, and it would be kind of a local tourist attraction. And then, so they would be kind of semi-retired because people would come and have their photos taken with them and so forth. And somebody's asking about the terror of Tiny Town, which is the notorious all-midget Western. If any of the Royal Midgets are in it, we'd have to get back to you on that. We'd be happy to look into it, but I don't know off the top of my head. Do you?
No, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I didn't know that some of the ones from the Terror of Tiny Town are in The Wizard of Oz, I believe.
I wouldn't doubt that because.
And I think there's some overlap between Wizard of Oz and Rose's.
Yes, there is. Definitely. Yes, there is. In fact, Gladys was invited to perform in the film Wizard of Oz, but because she had already gotten to a point in her life when she had a husband and they were thinking about having a child, they had a family, so she turned down the deal from Leo Singer to join the Wizard of Oz cast.
Turn down Leo Singer.
And the letter that Leo wrote to her is in the book also.
Are there more questions? We can take them.
No.
All right.
I got a question.
Okay, with someone who's right. Yeah, and also someone live in the room has one with me. But we'll
right, so
yes, okay.
Take Marie's question, which was Marie says, when I was in grad school in Flushing, Queens, we would park around Ash Avenue. I remember hearing there was a House of Small People retired. Either of you know about that?
No, first I've heard of it. That's worth looking into.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, yeah, and that's a good Queens program. Sorry, Coney Island.
Well, the book should be available hopefully by December 15th on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all your local but closed bookstores.
Oh, and then Brendan is asking, did Roses ever perform at Coney? That I do.
A good question. I'm not
sure. No, here's what I know. They toured the Lowe's. They performed in the Lowe's circuit, which was the biggest of small-time vaudeville. And it became the actual cinema circuit for MGM. And there was a Lowe's, I know, in Coney Island. I think it was right in the that hotel there across the street. So it's possible, but I don't have the facts. Probably individuals did, but whether the whole company went there, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting history, nevertheless.
All right. So, okay.
Well,
so
if anyone has any other questions.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, and look for other titles coming out of Vaudevisuals Press in the near future. I have some fun ideas coming down the road.
I'm giving this out as Christmas presents to everybody.
Nice. Me too.
All right, stay healthy. Stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you.
Wait, we want to keep you on for just a couple of minutes more. Just because I want to know what you have coming down the pike. So, Jim, you mentioned a couple of other titles that are coming through Vaudevisuals Press. Can you tell us a little about that?
No. Well, I can tell you that we're currently actually processing new postcard images. So if you go to vaudevisuals.com and go to the shop tab, there are a bunch of postcards available now, and I will be adding other images that I've taken over the years. The one that's up now is one of Mishu, one of the little people who was a Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey star. He's in the picture with Philippe Petit when they performed together in the late 70s at the Superdome. Pictures of an aerial shot I did of the World Trade Center when we were preparing to do the walk of the World Trade Center, some of the research pictures that I did. And then some other performers, Paul Zaloom and Tom Murren, the Alien comic, and some other featured performers that I've photographed over the years will be coming out in postcard form. I'm not sure people are sending postcards anymore, but I love them, so I'm going to produce them.
Cool. And Trev, what do you got going on here?
I'm working on a pilot for a podcast, believe it or not. It's the ultimate COVID-19 activity. It's going to be like any day now, the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Pilgrims in America, and that's really got lost in the shuffle, and nobody cares. But it won't be a drag. It'll be a sort of tapestry of stuff that's amusing and tragic and historical and showbiz related. I'm calling it provisionally Son of Paleface and or The Medicine Show. And it should be ready to share in a couple of weeks. And then I'm doing some more of these Zoom things. I'm doing something on Tin Pan Alley in early December and something on the movie Sunrise. I've been asked to do the silent movie Sunrise. Those are both in December, and I can't remember the dates or the links or whatever. I'll share them online.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to actually tell everybody about, and that is that our wonderful graphic designer Noah Diamond has a special treat coming down the pipe. If you visit his website, noahdiamond.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a very well produced and fun, entertaining project.
Right on.
Nice.
So if anybody has any last questions or comments, please just put them in the chat, and we'll wait a couple of seconds. Thank you, Marie. This is terrific. Thank you very much. Laura, thanks. I'll check out the page to see what else is going on. Missed the beginning of this busy day. Yeah, it is a busy day, and luckily the day is over. So this is a nice way to sort of wind down midweek. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking your time here, coming out to the Coney Island USA Ask the Experts Zoom. We hope that everybody who was watching enjoyed. If you did enjoy, and we know you did, we are going to be going weekly now for the next couple of weeks. And on December 5th, we have Once Upon a Time in Coney Island. It is our museum fundraiser. So you'd want to make sure to get a ticket on that. We have incredible video presentations including from Neil Gaiman. That's right, Neil, a former King Neptune, and he's going to be talking to us. And so we want to thank everybody for. Oh, Ida wants to know. Let's see. When do we expect the Coney Island Museum to open again? Well, I think we can safely say when it's safe to. So we hope that things will get the okay, and we can warrant the opening again when it's really safe to do so, along with the sideshow and the freak bar and all that Coney Island USA has to offer. So again, that's December 5th. You can check us out at coneyisland.com for more information. Coney Island USA on Facebook. Jim, Trav, thank you so very much for, well, I'd say coming out, but for spending the time with us this evening from your libraries. And thank you very
Adam.
much,
Thank you,
Lisa.
Thank you, Adam.
And all right,
we miss Coney. We miss Coney.
Yeah,
we all do.
we miss Coney Island a lot.